preparing for AI's impact on the estate agency business. Today, I'm joined by Mark Burgess, who is the boss man of Iceberg Digital, and his CRM is really into AI and has been for a number of years. He's written a book called Prepare AI's Impact on Business. Obviously, his CRM system focuses on estate agency. So I thought I'd get him up to Grantham and go through a 5-part series on how AI is going to change estate agency. So thank you for coming today, Mark. The estate agents past, how did we get to this point here, from the evolution of a manual process to more of a digital system? Because I mean, if you don't mind me saying, many people watching this can remember the old CRM, the old hot boxes of the cards, which again I do miss.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember working in an estate agency with hot boxes and 1 to 31 systems. Um, and those systems were really just the best way that we had of storing data at the time. And then along came computerized systems, but the very first computerized systems, you had to be able to actually code in order to be able to use them. There was no user interface as such. Windows 95 was probably the first system that had a graphical user interface whereby you didn't need to actually code. You could now just use a mouse and click icons and it'd do the code in the background. And then the next evolution after that came big data systems, whereby instead of you just putting data into the system and retrieving it back out, the systems would suck external data in as well in order to try to give you insight on what you'd already put into the system, who's looking at your website, so on and so forth. And now what we've got is the next evolution forward, which are large language models, which basically understand numbers and text. And what that allows you to do is talk to the computer. You don't have to use a mouse anymore, and you don't have to look through all the data. If the data's in there, you can talk to it and it'll understand it. So it's quite important to understand the evolution, because a lot of people look at artificial intelligence and think that it's like this magic thing. But if you really break it down, it doesn't actually do anything other than understand text and numbers.
You say a language that's what ChatGPT is and all the other things, isn't it?
Large language model, yeah. So they've reached this stage where they've been able to teach a computer to understand text and numbers and the context of it. And that's the end of what it
So
does.
in the old days with Windows 95, you clicked a button and it knew what to do. Now you talk to it like a human being. It goes to its database, looks at it, and comes back with the answer.
Exactly. And if it doesn't have a database, then it would just tell you it doesn't know. It doesn't make anything up. So people get very confused with AI because they see the end results of things and everyone says AI did it, but actually AI didn't do it. Software did it. So when everybody was making an action figure of themselves, AI isn't doing that. Software is doing that. In the same way that, like, you could log into Photoshop and do it yourself, well, AI can log in because it understands text and numbers. So if it has access to the software and it has access to the manual on how to use the software, then it can use the software to do that if you ask it to. But without access to the software and without access to the data on how to use the software, it can't do anything. It just understands texts and numbers.
It's got to be the right data, though, hasn't it?
Well, absolutely. This is what I'm saying. So large language models, it can understand your words, but it has no answers for you and it can do no functions. And so therefore, if you give it access to the internet, it can suddenly look incredible because it has access to lots of data, but it's not any different to you actually running a Google search.
As I'm sure you know, well, I know you know, but some people watching it might not. My daytime job is that I create content on the property market. And I think a lot of people think what comes out of ChatGPT is gospel. But just like if I put in the wrong search command into Google, it would give me a load of rubbish. It's the same with ChatGPT.
Yeah, this is the bit that's really important for people to understand. It's a large language model. It understands text and numbers. But if you don't make that data very, very refined,
Specific, yeah.
specific, and in very, very small chunks, then a large language model will start hallucinating. And because you don't know necessarily the context of everything you asked it, it will sound gospel, but it will start hallucinating if you give it too much information.
Or too vague. So, I mean, for example, I know someone who was saying what's happening to house prices in Peterborough, and it was a complete crock of rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's just there's too much information. All it's got at the moment is the internet to search. So there's too much information for it to actually be precise with its answer. If you just gave it a very small amount of data and controlled something when you're building an AI tool, inside it there's something called a temperature. So the temperature is how creative do you want me to be with this answer. So if you put it at 0, it will just go with the information that you've put in there, and the more you creep it up, the more creative it's going to get beyond that information that you already gave it to reference.
As technology has moved on from manual to digital and now big data, there's been huge opportunities missed by businesses by going from one to the next. Is that the reason why you've written this book? Is that you think there's an opportunity that potentially could be missed by estate agents?
I think the reason I wrote the book to start with was I started to get annoyed with the hype around AI that was it's just rubbish. It's just making people feel like either scared, or they don't understand it, or they don't know where it's going to go, or that the Terminator is going to come and kill us all. And it just
the Terminator is going to come and kill us.
and it just made me feel like I need to give people a place where they can go to read about how this actually works if they want, and then they can actually do something powerful with their business without getting stuck in the headlights of like, oh my God, I don't even know what to think about when I think about it.
I mean, do you think we as an industry, and let's be honest, we are very fragmented. There's a handful of the big boys and girls, and then a huge long tail of baby agents. Do you think we as an industry are falling behind? Are we at the vanguard at the front, or are we in the guard's van at the back?
I'm actually amazed that it's still standing, to be honest, the industry, because I've been talking about this for nearly 10 years. When Rightmove came along and that our industry started to really digitalize around that point, it wasn't something estate agents really wanted to embrace. They were just sort of dragged along that path.
I would say that they saw it as a way to reduce costs by going from newspapers to Rightmove.
I'm not sure they did, to be honest. I'm not sure I agree with that, because the newspapers they used to get listings. They didn't really use it to sell houses. They just used to put properties in there, often just a page of sold properties, to get listings. Rightmove was something whereby they could go on a listing and say, guess what? We advertise your property all around the world. And they just sort of got dragged into it. I remember,
because they still think Rightmove's job is to get them listings, don't they?
Well, a lot of people do, yeah, but it gets them listings in the sense that they feel like they have to talk about it on evaluation, but it doesn't bring them in leads, if you see what I mean.
I agree.
They got dragged along that path, and they got sort of dragged along the software path, but the rest of the world then switched around about 2007 to 2010. The rest of the world switched into big data systems as the iPhone came along, and as Facebook started to take hold and high-speed internet started to kick in. And that just passed straight by estate agency. They continued to work the way.
Is that because we are a fragmented business?
I think it's because the bar's pretty low in estate agency for you to make a bit of a living. If a lot of the agents that I talked to were like me, when I fell into estate agency, my options were work in a kebab shop, work in an ice cream shop, work in an estate agency. And so my expectations of what was going to be a good living for me were not incredibly high. And so you could still, in 2025, open an estate agency on a self-employed model or by yourself with just a pen and paper and make a bit of a living. And that is crazy. There aren't really many industries left where you can do that. So I'm amazed it still stands.
Is that again because we're fragmented? There's lots and lots of small agents.
It's probably to do with small agents. I
I
think
mean,
as a,
there's 14,500 estate agency firms, and to be in the top 5,000, you only need to sell 2.1 houses a
yeah,
month.
I think we're saying the same thing. I think for me, it's because there are not many that take it seriously as a business. It's more of a job that they do for themselves. When you try and actually build a business, they're the agents that suddenly start thinking to themselves, "Huh, how do these systems work? What's big data?" Well, if you're just trying to make a living, you can do it with a pen and
Okay.
paper.
Surely that, though, is the responsibility of the CRM system. There's 4 or 5 big CRM firms. If I wouldn't expect an estate agent to design their own computer system, but I would certainly hope that the CRMs.
Well, there is a system, life cycle, that does it. The rest of them
Okay.
don't do it. But
Why? Okay. Why? This is not a pitch for you,
yeah,
though it's very good. Um, why do you think the others haven't? Come on. We're talking legacy systems here.
well, I guess the best way I can try and understand it is that those systems, when they first came along, were innovative in the year 2000, 2005. They were quite innovative. They were run by people like myself, who there was a face to the business, a leader who had a vision, and then they slowly were bought by corporations, and they just roll along like any big corporation. Like, why does, some of the biggest banks in the world have an awful online banking system? Because it's no one's responsibility. Like, they just don't care. And along come the new ones who do, and they make more of an effort.
I mean, if you don't mind me saying, the vast majority of CRMs in the UK are glorified Excel spreadsheets with a computer system going in and pulling data out.
Yeah, but that's what they were built for. Like, they were built in a
Okay.
time where that was
So, so,
useful.
so again, CRMs are quite expensive. I would have certainly have hoped for the CRMs to have evolved for their clients.
Look, I mean, all businesses work that way. Why did Blockbuster not evolve? Why do any big corporations get eaten by like new entries into the market? Because they get lazy and it's no one's real responsibility. There's a CEO who's employed on a big salary to do that job, and if it all goes down, he will go and get another job. It's different for small businesses that start out trying to achieve something. So I think that can really be my only answer as to why they don't innovate to that. They have a system. They wouldn't be able to just switch it over to a big data system. They have a completely different software. So they'd have to continue down that road. Otherwise, they would have to just delete their entire company and start again.
But surely they should be spending money in the background to, almost a brand new system. Instead of trying to change the legacy system, they should be building a brand new one and then bringing the data across, and then almost just flicking a switch. Or is it not as easy as that?
Well, if if you didn't have investors and shareholders and all of that sort of thing, then like, yeah, as a self-owned business, you could make that maneuver. But you're talking about moving a super tanker, aren't you? Like, you, it's just not as simple as that for the people that are just employed in a big corporation to make that decision. They just do the same job every day.
Okay, let's leave this first session now. Let's go on to the second section, which talks about where AI is at the moment and how it can help estate agents. So I'll see you on the other side.